If you'd asked me about happiness a few years ago, I'd have told you it was me and Mike in our tiny Chicago apartment, sprawled on the couch with a bottle of cheap wine, laughing until our sides hurt. We were unstoppable, young, crazy in love, with dreams bigger than the city skyline. Our wedding was straight out of a fairy tale. Me in a flowy dress, Mike grinning like he'd won the lottery, and our friends dancing under string lights until midnight. Life felt perfect, like we were living in a movie. Then Lily came along, our little angel, with her big blue eyes and tiny giggles that could melt your heart. She completed us, but then the first crack appeared, and I didn't even see it coming. It was a Tuesday when Mike got the call. I was folding Lily's onesies, humming some lullaby when he walked in, phone still in his hand, face pale. "They're restructuring," he said, voice flat. "I'm out." Just like that, his marketing job, the one he'd poured his soul into, was gone. We sat on the couch, stunned, Lily babbling in her crib. We told ourselves it was temporary. Mike was brilliant, charismatic, the guy who could charm anyone. He'd bounce back. But Chicago wasn't kind to dreams like ours. The rent was brutal. Childcare was a fortune, and with only my accounting job, we were barely scraping by. I'd crunch numbers at night, watching our savings shrink, my stomach in knots. We couldn't keep up. That's when we decided to leave. Havenwood, Illinois wasn't even on our radar until my parents mentioned it. They'd retired there to a quiet town with tree-lined streets and houses you could actually afford. "Come stay near us," Mom said. "There's space, community, a slower life for Lily." Mike and I looked at each other, and for the first time in months, we felt a spark of hope. Chicago was chewing us up, but Havenwood? It could be our fresh start. We packed up our life, photo albums, Lily's stuffed bunny, Mike's old guitar, and said goodbye to the city. I remember staring out the moving truck's window, Lake Michigan fading in the distance, telling myself we were doing the right thing. Havenwood was like stepping into a postcard. Main Street had a diner with checkered floors, a hardware store where old guys swapped stories, and a park where kids chased fireflies at dusk. Our new house was small, a two-bedroom with creaky floors and a porch swing, but it was ours. My parents were 5 minutes away, ready to spoil Lily with cookies and bedtime stories. I landed a job at a local accounting firm, nothing glamorous but steady. The pay was enough to cover the mortgage and keep us afloat, especially with Mike job hunting. He was optimistic, scrolling job boards at breakfast, tailoring his resume like a pro. "I'll find something soon," he'd say, kissing my forehead before taking Lily for a walk. I believed him. Mike was my rock, my Prince Charming. Even after the job loss, I trusted him to pull through. The first few weeks were a blur of unpacking and settling in. I'd come home from work to find Mike playing with Lily, her giggles echoing through the house. We'd cook dinner together, bumping into each other in the tiny kitchen, laughing over spilled sauce. Havenwood felt like a gift. The air was cleaner, the stars brighter, and Lily loved toddling around my parents' backyard. I'd sit on the porch at night, Mike's arm around me, and think, this is it, we're going to be okay. My job was demanding, lots of late nights balancing books, but it felt worth it. We were building something new, a life where Lily could grow up happy, where we could breathe again. But looking back, there were signs I missed. Mike's smiles didn't always reach his eyes. He'd talk about job leads, but the details were vague. "Had a good call today," he'd say, then change the subject. I was too busy to notice, too caught up in spreadsheets and diaper changes. I'd leave for work each morning, waving as he buckled Lily into her stroller, assuming he was off to network or interview. He was trying, I told myself. He had to be. We'd been through too much for him to give up. Plus, Lily needed us both, her little hands grabbing my fingers, her babbles lighting up my world. She was why we moved, why we kept going. I thought we were finally safe, and that Havenwood was our second chance. But I was wrong. Something was off, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came crashing down. Have you ever had to start over, thinking you'd left the worst behind, only to find it followed you? That's where I was, standing on the edge of a dream that was starting to fade with no idea how deep the cracks would go. Havenwood was supposed to be our fresh start, but a few months in, I was starting to feel like I was carrying the world on my shoulders. I'd drag myself out of bed at 6 a.m., get Lily fed and dressed, then rush to my accounting job, my head already swimming with numbers. The firm was small, but the clients were demanding. Local businesses, farmers, even the town council, all expecting perfect balance sheets. I'd spend hours untangling their messy records, my eyes burning from the screen, knowing I couldn't mess up. We needed every penny of my paycheck. Meanwhile, Mike was supposed to be job hunting, and at first I believed he was killing it. He'd leave the house every morning, dressed sharp in his old work shirts, a determined look in his eyes. "Got a lead today," he'd say, grabbing his keys. "Fingers crossed." I'd kiss him goodbye, trusting he was out there fighting for us. But the weeks dragged on, and nothing landed. He'd come home with the same tired excuses. They went with someone internal, or the company's on a hiring freeze. At first, I sympathized. The job market was brutal, especially for a marketing guy in a small town. I'd rub his shoulders, tell him, "You'll get there, Mike. You're too good for them to pass up." But the rejections kept piling up, and I could see them chipping away at him. His shoulders slumped more, his laugh got quieter. He'd play with Lily, building block towers or reading her stories, and those moments kept me going. Seeing him with her, so gentle, so present, reminded me of the man I fell in love with. But outside of those moments, he was slipping away, like a ghost in our own home. The bills didn't care about his rejections, though. Our mortgage was a beast, eating up half my salary. Then there were utilities, groceries, and Mike's student loans from his fancy business degree, loans we were still paying off years later. I started cutting corners wherever I could. No more coffee runs, no new clothes, no date nights. I canceled our streaming subscriptions, even the one Lily loved for her cartoons. "We'll make it fun," I told her, singing silly songs instead, but it stung. I was working overtime, staying late at the office after everyone else had gone home, my desk littered with coffee cups and post-it notes. I'd get back to a dark house, Lily already asleep, Mike scrolling his phone on the couch. "Rough day?" he'd ask, barely looking up. I'd nod, too exhausted to talk, and collapse into bed, only to do it all again tomorrow. The house was a mess. Dishes in the sink, laundry overflowing, toys scattered everywhere. I was doing it all, cooking, cleaning, parenting, working. My parents helped with Lily, thank God, taking her for afternoons so I could focus. Mom would pack me leftovers. Dad would fix our leaky faucet, but even their support couldn't fill the gap Mike was leaving. He was there, physically, but not there. I'd ask about his day, hoping for some spark, but he'd shrug. "Same old," he'd mutter. "Sent out more applications." I wanted to believe him, but doubt started creeping in, like a slow leak I couldn't plug. Then I noticed something weird. Every morning, Mike would still leave the house, same as always. He'd put on his nice shirts, grab his laptop bag, and drive off like he had somewhere to be. I assumed he was going to coffee shops or co-working spaces to network, maybe meeting recruiters, but his stories got vaguer. "Met a guy who knows someone," he'd say, or "had a call that ran long." I'd press for details, but he'd change the subject, ask about Lily or my work. One afternoon, I was driving to pick up Lily from my parents when I saw his car parked outside the public library. Not an office, not a cafe, the library. My stomach twisted. Why was he there? Was he even job hunting? I shook it off, told myself I was being paranoid. He was probably just using their Wi-Fi, right? But the question gnawed at me and I couldn't unsee it. The financial strain was suffocating, and I'd check our bank account daily, watching the balance drop lower and lower. We were late on the electric bill and the loan payments were looming. I started skipping lunch to save a few bucks, surviving on office coffee and granola bars. My clothes were fraying, my shoes worn thin, but I couldn't justify spending on myself. Lily needed diapers, formula, doctor visits. She was growing so fast, her little dresses barely fitting. I'd lie awake at night, running numbers in my head, trying to stretch my paycheck further. Could we refinance? Sell the car? Move in with my parents? Every option felt like a failure. I'd look at Mike, sleeping beside me, and feel this mix of love and resentment. Why wasn't he fighting harder? Why was I carrying this alone? I started to feel like a stranger in my own life. I'd catch my reflection in the office window, dark circles under my eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, and barely recognize myself. The Sarah who danced at her wedding, who dreamed of a big, happy future, was gone. In her place was this tired, stretched thin woman, holding everything together with duct tape and prayers. My parents noticed. "You okay, honey?" Mom would ask, her eyes soft with worry. I'd force a smile, say, "Just tired." But inside, I was screaming. I missed Mike. Not the guy leaving the house every day, but the real Mike. The one who made me feel like we could conquer anything. The breaking point was coming. I could feel it. One evening, I found a stack of unopened bills tucked under a pile of junk mail. Water, gas, credit card, all past due. My hands shook as I opened them, red final notice stamps glaring at me. I confronted Mike, holding up the envelopes. "Why didn't you tell me about these?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. He looked away, mumbling, "I thought I could handle it." Handle it? We were drowning, and he was still acting like everything was fine. That's when the suspicion really took hold. Where was he going every day? What was he doing while I worked myself to death? I didn't have proof, not yet, but the pieces weren't adding up. Keep watching, because this is where it all started to fall apart. I was one step away from the truth, and when it hit, it would change everything. If you've ever felt like the person you trusted most was slipping away, you'll get why I couldn't let this go. I needed answers, and I was going to get them, no matter how much it hurt. That Friday, everything shattered. I'd been holding it together for months, but the weight of it all, work, bills, Lily, Mike's distance, finally broke me. It started with Lily. I got home from the office, my head pounding from a day of untangling a client's botched tax records, and found her burning up. Her little cheeks were flushed, her cries sharp and desperate. I pressed my hand to her forehead. She was scorching. My heart raced as I fumbled for the thermometer. 102 degrees. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called Mike. "Lily's sick," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where are you?" He was vague, as usual. "I'm, tied up with something. I'll be home soon." Tied up? I could hear the clink of a coffee shop in the background. Rage bubbled in my chest, but I shoved it down. Lily needed me. I rushed her to the pediatrician, my parents meeting me there. Dad held my hand while Mom rocked Lily, who was whimpering, her tiny body limp. The doctor said it was a viral fever, nothing too serious, but she needed rest and fluids. I nodded, barely hearing him, my mind spinning. How were we going to pay for this visit? Our insurance was bare bones, and the copay was another hit we couldn't afford. On the drive home, with Lily dozing in her car seat, I checked my email out of habit. That's when I saw it. A message from our bank, subject line screaming, "Mortgage payment overdue." My stomach dropped. I opened it, scanning the words. Default notice, foreclosure proceedings, immediate action required. We were 60 days behind. 60 days! How had I not known? Mike handled the mortgage, or so I thought. Panic clawed at me. We were losing our home, Lily was sick, and Mike was God knows where, tied up. I got Lily settled at my parents' house, her fever down but still clingy, and drove home in a haze. The house was dark, cluttered with unwashed dishes and unfolded laundry. I sat at the kitchen table, the bank email open on my laptop, those red-stamped bills from last week staring me down. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I felt like I was drowning, like the walls were closing in. Every sacrifice I'd made, skipping meals, working late, cutting every corner, hadn't been enough. And Mike, the man I'd trusted with my life, was letting us sink. I thought of his car at the library, his vague excuses, the way he'd dodge my questions. Something snapped inside me. I couldn't wait anymore. I needed the truth now. When Mike walked in, it was past 8 p.m. He was in his usual button-up laptop bag slung over his shoulder, like he'd just come from some big meeting. The sight of him, still playing this charade, lit a fire in me. Lily was at my parents', so it was just us. I stood up, the chair scraping loud against the floor. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low, trembling. He froze, his eyes flicking to the laptop, the bills. "What's wrong?" he asked, like he didn't already know. I held up my phone, the bank email glowing. "Do you know Lily's sick? Do you know we're losing our house?" My voice cracked, tears burning my eyes. "Where are you every day, Mike? Because it's not a job." He tried to brush it off like always. "Sarah, calm down. I'm working on things." But I was done with his deflections. "Don't lie to me!" I shouted, stepping closer, my hands balled into fists. "We're drowning! I'm killing myself to keep us afloat, and you're what? Hiding? Playing pretend?" Tears streamed down my face, hot and unstoppable. I pointed to the bills, my voice breaking. "These are real, Mike. Lily's fever is real. Where are you when we need you?" He looked trapped, his jaw tight, eyes darting like he was searching for an escape. But I wasn't letting him off. "Tell me the truth," I demanded. "What are you doing every day?" The room went still, the only sound my ragged breathing. Mike's shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I saw something break in him. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I haven't had a job in months," he whispered, so quiet I almost didn't hear. "I go to the library, coffee shops, parks, anywhere but here." His voice cracked. "I didn't want you to see me as a failure." The words hit like a punch. Months. He'd been lying for months, dressing up, leaving the house, letting me believe he was trying. I staggered back, my legs weak, and sat on the chair staring at him. "A failure," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You think lying to me to Lily makes you less of one?" I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was cry. "Do you know what I've given up?" I said, my voice raw. "I don't eat lunch, Mike. I wear the same shoes every day because I can't buy new ones. I work until midnight so we can keep this house, and you—" I choked on a sob. "You let me think we were in this together." He looked up, his eyes red, tears streaking his face. "I was ashamed," he said. "I thought if I kept looking I'd find something, and you'd never have to know. I didn't want to lose you." "Lose me?" I laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're losing us right now," I said, my voice barely a whisper. We sat there, the silence heavy, suffocating. The man I'd loved, the one I'd built my life with, felt like a stranger. I thought of our Chicago days, his confident grin, the way he'd spin me around our tiny apartment. Where was that Mike? I thought of Lily, her fever, her innocent trust in us. She deserved better than this. I deserved better. "How could you do this?" I asked, more to myself than him. "How could you let it get this far?" He didn't answer, just so stared at the floor, his hands clasped tight, like he was holding himself together. I wiped my eyes, my anger fading into something colder, emptier. "I trusted you," I said. "I thought we were a team." He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "Sarah, I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'll fix this, I swear." But I couldn't look at him. The betrayal cut too deep. All those mornings I'd waved him off, thinking he was fighting for us, he'd been hiding. All those nights I'd lain awake, stressing over bills, he'd known we were sinking and said nothing. I stood up, my legs unsteady. "I need space," I said, walking to the bedroom. "I can't do this right now." I closed the door, leaning against it, my sobs muffled so he wouldn't hear. The house felt too small, the walls pressing in. I thought of Lily, of the life we'd dreamed of in Havenwood. Was it all a lie? Could we ever come back from this? I didn't know. All I knew was the man I loved had broken my trust, and I was left picking up the pieces. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you'd give your life for, you know this pain. It's not just anger, it's grief. And I was drowning in it. The days after our fight were like walking through fog. The air in our house felt thick, every glance between Mike and me loaded with things we didn't say. I'd wake up to Lily's cries, my eyes gritty from crying myself to sleep, and go through the motions, diapers, coffee, work, while the sting of Mike's lies lingered. I kept seeing him on that couch, head in his hands, admitting he'd been pretending for months. It wasn't just the money or the mortgage. It was the betrayal, the way he'd let me carry everything alone. I didn't know if I could forgive him, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. Mike surprised me, though. The morning after our blowout, I expected him to slip back into his routine, grab his laptop bag, kiss me goodbye, and disappear to the library or wherever he'd been hiding. But he didn't. He was in the kitchen when I got up, fumbling with a pan, trying to make pancakes. They were a mess, half burnt and gooey in the middle, but Lily giggled, smearing syrup on her face. "I'm staying home today," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Figured I could help out." I nodded, too tired to argue, and left for work. When I got back, the dishes were done, the living room picked up. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was doing it all alone. He kept at it. Mike stopped wearing his work shirts, trading them for old tees and jeans. He took over laundry, folding Lily's tiny clothes with a focus I hadn't seen in ages. He'd read to her, his voice soft as he mimicked characters in her favorite books, making her squeal. He'd take her for walks in the stroller, giving me an hour to breathe after work. My parents noticed the shift. "He's trying, Sarah," Mom said one day, handing me a plate of her lasagna. "Give him a chance." I wanted to, but trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Every time I looked at him, I remembered the bank email, the library parking lot, the months of lies. Still, seeing him with Lily, so patient, so present, softened the edges of my anger. One night, about a week later, we finally talked. Really talked. Lily was asleep, her soft snores drifting through the baby monitor. I was on the couch, scrolling through job postings for Mike out of habit, when he sat down across from me. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, "I need to say something." I braced myself, expecting excuses, but his eyes were raw, unguarded. "I was terrified of failing you," he said. "Back in Chicago, I was the guy with the big job, the big plans. When I lost that, I didn't know who I was. I thought if I pretended, if I kept up the act, I'd find a way out. But I just dug us deeper. I'm so sorry." His voice cracked, and I saw tears in his eyes. It was the Mike I'd fallen in love with, honest, vulnerable, not hiding behind charm. I took a shaky breath, my own eyes stinging. "Do you know how alone I felt?" I said. "I was working myself to death, Mike, thinking we were a team. And you were lying. Every day." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't face you, not when I felt so useless." We sat there, the words heavy between us. I told him about the nights I'd skip dinner to save money, the fear that we'd lose everything. He listened, really listened, his hands clasped tight like he was holding onto every word. "I want to fix this," he said. "Not just the money, us. I want to be the man you and Lily deserve." I didn't know if he could, but for the first time, I saw him trying to climb out of the hole he'd dug. Mike started small, but he started. He found an online coding course, free through a community program, and threw himself into it. I'd catch him at the kitchen table after Lily's bedtime, headphones on, muttering about Python and JavaScript. It wasn't a job, but it was a step, a sign he wasn't giving up. He also started doing odd jobs around Havenwood. Our neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, needed his lawnmower fixed. Mike tinkered with it for an afternoon and got it running. Word spread, and soon he was fixing leaky faucets, patching fences, even unclogging Mrs. Carter's ancient sink. He'd come home with $20 here, $50 there, his hands greasy but his grin real. "It's not much," he'd say, handing me the cash, "but it's something." And it was. Those small wins kept the lights on, paid for Lily's medicine when her fever lingered. I started to see glimpses of the old Mike. Not the cocky marketing guy, but the man who'd make me laugh until I cried, who'd dream big with me over late-night pizza. One evening, he cooked dinner. Spaghetti, slightly overdone, but edible. Lily clapped her hands, sauce all over her cheeks, and I couldn't help but smile. "You're getting better at this," I said, and he laughed, a real laugh. Not the hollow one I'd gotten used to. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but we were trying. I'd catch myself watching him, reading to Lily, hammering away at his coding assignments, and feel a flicker of hope. Maybe we could rebuild, not the life we had, but something new. But trust is a fragile thing. Some days I'd see him grab his keys and my stomach would twist, wondering if he was slipping back into old habits. I'd check our bank account, half expecting another missed payment. Healing wasn't linear, it was messy, full of doubt. I'd talk to Mom, who'd remind me, "He's showing up, Sarah. That's where it starts." She was right, but I was still scared. We'd been through too much to fall apart again. Lily deserved a home, not just a house. And I deserved a partner, not a ghost. Mike's efforts were adding up, though. Neighbors started calling him the fix-it guy, and his coding course was going well. He'd even built a simple app for tracking Lily's nap schedule, showing it off like a kid with a new toy. We weren't out of the woods, but the fear that had choked me for months was loosening its grip. We'd sit on the porch some nights, Lily asleep upstairs, and talk. Not about bills or jobs, but about us, our dreams, the life we still wanted. It felt like a lifeline, a reminder of why we'd fought so hard. But would it be enough to save us? I didn't know. Rebuilding trust takes more than good intentions, and we had a long way to go. If you've ever had to start over with someone who broke your heart, you know it's a gamble. But watching Mike try, really try, I wanted to believe we could make it. Keep watching because you won't believe how we turned it around, or if we'd hold it together. Months later, Havenwood felt like home again, not just a place we were surviving. Mike finished his coding course and started landing freelance gigs, small websites for local businesses, like the diner on Main Street or the hardware store. It wasn't a corner office in Chicago, but it was steady, and he'd light up talking about it, showing me mock-ups on his laptop, his eyes bright with purpose. His repair jobs grew too. Neighbors called him the fix-it guy, and he'd come home with stories. How he got Mrs. Carter's ancient toaster working, or rebuilt a kid's bike for free. He'd hand me $100, $200, grinning like he'd won a prize. For the mortgage, he'd say, and I'd feel the knot in my chest loosen a little more. We were still frugal, clipping coupons, cooking at home, buying Lily's clothes secondhand. But the panic was gone. No more late-night bank account checks, no more dread over every bill. We caught up on the mortgage, paid off the overdue utilities, even started a small savings account for Lily. It wasn't much, but it was ours, built from scratch. Lily's laughter filled the house again, her toddling steps chasing Mike as he pretended to be a monster, roaring and scooping her up. I'd watch them, my heart full, remembering the dark days when I thought we'd lose it all. We weren't those people anymore. We found our rhythm as a family. Sundays became picnic days at the park, spreading a blanket under the oaks, Lily smearing peanut butter on her face. Mike and I would cook together, bumping hips in our tiny kitchen, laughing when the pasta boiled over. One night, he pulled out his old guitar, strumming a goofy song he made up for Lily, and I caught myself singing along, my voice rusty but happy. It felt like us again. Not the starry-eyed kids from Chicago, but something stronger, weathered but real. We'd been through the storm and come out scarred but standing. Looking back, I learned love isn't just the easy days, the wine-soaked nights or big dreams. It's showing up when it's hard, when you're scared, when you've got nothing left. Mike's lies nearly broke us, but his fight to make it right showed me who he could be. I learned to face the truth no matter how ugly. I'd hidden from it too, ignoring the signs, thinking blind trust was enough. It wasn't. Love takes work, honesty, forgiveness, and a willingness to start over. I learned to ask for help, leaning on my parents, our neighbors, even Mike when I let him back in. Havenwood taught me that too. Community, the way people rally when you're down. If you're struggling, don't hide. Face it. Tell someone. Keep going, even when it feels impossible. Our darkest days, Lily's fever, the foreclosure notice, Mike's confession, led us here to a life we fought for. We're not perfect. Some days I still check the bank account just in case. But Mike's there, steady, showing up. And Lily, our little light, keeps us grounded. Her giggles a reminder of why we held on. Havenwood's beauty shines brighter now. The golden sunsets, the quiet streets, the park where Lily chases butterflies. We're planning a small vacation next summer, maybe a cabin by a lake, just us three. It's not a big dream, but it's enough. Your darkest days can lead to your brightest future if you're willing to fight for it. So if you're in the thick of it, don't give up. You're stronger than you know. Subscribe for more stories like ours and let me know in the comments. What's your second chance story? I'm all ears.